It comes to the behavior of people. And being an office with over 1,400 people, you're bound to get different type of behaviors and understanding.
Hello everyone. Welcome to our podcast. This is Diba Hassan. And today we have with us Waleed Al Mahrizi from OQ's corporate HSSE and a member of the emergency management team who will tell us how does it feel like being a frontliner and narrate his experience with COVID-19. Thank you for joining us, Waleed, and welcome.
Ahlan wa sahlan.
Many of us at OQ know you as the frontliner who deals with any HSE hazards and more recently with all the COVID-19 cases. What are some of the challenges that you come across in doing your job?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Well, being a frontliner, I'm not sure that I can classify myself as that. We have a lot of people who are working behind the scenes, managing our clinics and running the clinics that are actually facing the people, and they are the actual frontliners that we have. For me, being responsible for the corporate office over here, the challenges that we are facing always is the behavior of people or the different understanding of COVID. So we have a lot of people who are having different understanding of COVID. Some of them think that they might never get it. Some of them who already recovered from COVID, that they think they don't have a chance of recontracting COVID again, and behaviors. So as the emergency management team and the HSSE teams, we have kept all the precautionary measures in place, all the tools and equipments and the guides that people should follow. But it comes to the behavior of people. And being an office with over 1,400 people, you're bound to get different type of behaviors and understanding on COVID.
Indeed. Waleed, you yourself got COVID-19, which I thought was inevitable considering that how much you are at the front line. What was the experience like for you?
Well, the experience with COVID, I can start with the symptoms. So I started developing a sore throat as I was driving. I immediately thought about it, and I remember the same day I had a very cold drink. So I could have easily blamed it on that drink and just rub it off, But I called my wife and told her that I suspect I might have a symptom. Went back home, never removed the mask for the first day, and just waited on some symptoms to either decrease or increase. And then the symptoms unfortunately increased. I went for the COVID test and informed the rest of my family. My father, I remember I called him. And the way I had it, it was mainly high fever that continued for almost 9 days, day and night. And then the symptoms started reducing.
And how long were you in isolation?
For 10 days. I was in total isolations until I got the green light from the health center. And strangely enough, my wife being a contact, she was asked to isolate for 14 days. Because again, you can always contract the virus, but symptoms will not show for 14 days. But Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, neither my wife or my kids got COVID.
Alhamdulillah. And then I think that was quarantine well done. Generally, Waleed, if someone develops symptoms, what's the first thing that they must do?
Even before developing symptoms, I always encourage everybody to keep at home a room ready for quarantine. So you need to have a room that's ready for yourself, your family members. Everybody should know that room. Where does it exist in the house and why is it there? So you can keep minimum things in the room. For example, a sofa, a bed, obviously it needs to be self-contained with facilities, and some things to keep you busy throughout the quarantine. So whenever you develop any symptoms, you should not basically look it down. You should not try and tough it out. You should immediately go and isolate yourself and protect the rest of your family.
Any special advice to the members of the OQ community?
Well, for the OQ community, I can always advise my colleagues is, first of all, OQ, it's an entity within Oman and outside of Oman also, that we have basically to support the economy of the country that we are operating with. So we being safe and protected and follow the guidelines will ensure us basically meeting our objectives as an entity, as a company, as a service provider within the country.
Absolutely. And again, why should people take COVID-19 seriously?
COVID-19 have showed time and time again that it's capable to basically collapse large economies. It can collapse also health service providers. Even much more advanced countries that have well-established health services basically were tested during COVID. COVID not necessarily kills like some people try and make it out, but COVID actually collapses the health providing services. I'll give an example that I always give during my inductions. So let us just say, for the sake of discussion, that you have a hospital that is designed to receive 500 people per day. All of a sudden 5,000 people or 3,000 people show up. What will the options be? So the hospital immediately will go on what known as triaging. So they will basically categorize people according to the age group. So you have age group number 1, age group number 2, and number 3. So the services will be provided to the age group number 1, and then the second priority will be given to the age group number 2, and then the age group number 3 and 4 will just have to wait for services. And the reason I cannot give the age groups is because it differs from country to country.
So you're saying that we should focus on flattening the curve?
Yes. And we can see also many countries, for example, the countries that started COVID before us here are relapsing and going on wave 2.
Right.
Few countries in Europe, we heard that they're going for complete lockdowns and shutdowns. And inevitably, if we do not do something about it, it will come here also.
Indeed. Waleed, what's the difference between taking COVID seriously and panicking about COVID?
Well, if you have any emergency, the last thing you want to do is panic. Because number one, you will not be thinking wisely. You might not act correctly. So for example, we have seen a few cases of a positive case within a community that everybody else rushes to go and test on the same day, which might give you a wrong sense of security, because you might be negative, but in few days you show symptoms, but you'll have the false sense of security that you are negative. Taking it seriously and not panicking is preparing a place of isolation, understanding what are the actual symptoms, so you can have a proper judgment on COVID and advise people accordingly, and yourself also.
What are some of the steps that have been taken by OQ to combat COVID-19?
Well, in OQ, we started with the whole protocol of precautionary measures, starting with a self-disclosure form that is a prerequisite before starting your working week or working shift for the rotators and for visitors and contractors also who are coming. So the self-disclosure form needs to be filled as accurate as possible, with thus giving all the right information, so the clinic can basically determine, are we fit to come back to work. If you go to some technology innovations that we have introduced into the system, for example, very thankful to our digitalization team for installing the touchless buttons that we have now in our elevators, and this to be basically done throughout our assets. And spacing of the seating arrangements and the workstations, so we ensure that a minimum of 2.2 meters are available from each person's working area to the other. In addition to that, we are making our own sanitizers throughout our labs in Suhar that are available throughout the assets also. This is to ensure that we are using basically right sanitizers with the right ingredients, not depending on what's available in the market. And not forgetting the Salmin Bulletin issued on a weekly basis with our corporate communication teams, cascading the information that we need to send out to the community, numbers of cases and other very vital information. So thank you for that, Liba.
You're welcome, Waleed. Again, people usually do not know what kind of effort goes in the emergency management team. Would you like to highlight some of the activities of the EMT?
Well, in the EMT, we don't only manage pandemics, so this is something actually new for us. It's the first time that we are managing a pandemic on a corporate level or on a business line level even. So we basically support all the businesses when they have an emergency, upstream, downstream, any other business unit that we have that may have an emergency. For example, in this year, we started with the unfortunate demise of His Majesty or the late Majesty Sultan Qaboos, Allah yarhamu. And then we moved on to a cyclone or a weather front that went through our Salala region. And then also COVID started. So when COVID started, it was a straightforward approach since the end of February up to now. Initially, we had daily meetings with all the businesses, just trying to figure it out. How does it work? With time, we start improving. For the last couple of months now, we reduced even the sessions to 3 times a week rather than every day. So it's quite an effort to coordinate all the business lines into one approach of managing an emergency or a pandemic like what we have now.
I know you're working almost 24/7 along with other members of your department, especially ever since the pandemic started. But what's Waleed like at home or when he's not working?
Thank you for that. At least we remember home now. So I really enjoy spending time with my father and brothers, wife and kids. I enjoy gardening. A lot of people don't know. That's
interesting.
One of my favorite pastimes is gardening. But I can say I enjoy time with family. My father, my brothers and sister, wife and kids. Basically the time that I unwind and forget all of these pandemics and other emergencies that we are dealing with.
And again, Waleed, one last question that I had was that you as the EMT are taking care of all of us, right? But then how can we support you in return?
Well, supporting us is by adhering, making basically our life a bit easier. So once we have our routine checks, we don't want to see people not adhering to the precautionary measures. A simple thing of keeping distance, not sharing food, for example, not gathering unnecessarily, wearing a mask properly. All of these things, once we see them in the community, we feel a bit at ease. But for us, and as our leader always tells us, if you save one life, it's worth it to all of us.
Absolutely. Waleed, thank you so much for that very interesting and informative discussion. We now come to the most interesting part of this podcast, which is Fast 5. And in this round, I'll basically give you 5 questions and you'll have to answer it on the spot. So are we ready to do this?
Yalla, bismillah.
Okay, let's go. Waleed, would you rather visit a museum or go shopping?
A museum. I remember one of the best experience I had was visiting the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. So I really love museums, history.
That's nice. And again, travel or stay home?
I would say stay home.
Okay.
I really enjoy staying at home and just sleep.
There's nothing wrong with that. And what do you prefer, big city or countryside?
Countryside always.
Okay. Sunrise or sunset?
Sunrise.
Okay. And the last question, ice cream or cake?
Why can I not have them both?
You can totally do.
We have ice cream cakes now.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, Waleed. I think that was played well. And thanks for taking part in this podcast, and wish you all the best.
Thank you, Diba, for having me. And Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you everyone for listening to us today, and please stay tuned. We will be back with another very interesting episode of the podcast. And other than that, if you are an OQ talent or you have an interesting story to share with us, please do let us know on communications@oq.com, and we will be delighted to feature you in our podcast. Stay safe and have a great day ahead.